All right, yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Bain Break It Down Forex. It's your boy Big Bain in this thing. And you guys guessed it, another week, another opportunity for us to make some money in the Forex market. So let's get right to it, all right? Boom, over on the dollar, guys, I'm bearish, all right? It's pretty simple. Okay, we've been in our retracement phase, right, with the dollar. We got up to this level of supply and we started to give major rejection, all right? Now, we did not close below the low of Thursday. On Friday, we closed inside of the Thursday candle, but we swept the high of Thursday. So chances are that we want to, seek sell side, which will be every low, swing point that you see to the downside. And again, because this retracement has literally gotten back to our supply zone, we'll be looking for, a nice push down as the run phase should continue on the dollar. All right, so very, very bearish on the dollar. And this week we don't really have news for Monday and Tuesday concerning the dollar, but Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is where everything will pick up. All right, so on Wednesday we'll have CPI, Thursday I think it's unemployment, and then Friday is PPI. All right, so CPI and PPI, they're always huge momentum or catalyst drivers when it comes to trading the Forex market. All right, especially with the geopolitical tension, right, with Iran and what have you, right, that adds fuel to the flame when these reports come out. All right, so just in saying that, if you don't happen to trade on Monday or Tuesday, right, you may not miss a move. All right, but you cannot afford to not trade on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week, because again, that's when the news is released and it will make these pairs, all right, start to pop. All right, so for that, guys, again, I'm bearish on the dollar. All right, moving over to JPY, and on the JPY I'm bullish. All right, so we broke this high over here and then we started our retracement back to our point of interest. Right, so now that we're here, right, we consolidated for a good week or so, right, to where we're engineering liquidity within this consolidation, both above it and below it, right? But because we swept the low, or we closed below Thursday's candle, all right, guys, let me get you in here. Okay, because we closed below Thursday, that means that we want to continue going lower. So what is left if we're thinking about price continue to go lower? Well, it's liquidity behind the previous week low as well as Friday's low. So what I'm expecting out the gate is for JPY to take Friday's low, take the previous week low, and close back within the weekly range or within the daily range. If it does that and we get a nice candle close, it is time to start selling pairs like GJ, AJ, right, all the J's, right? You guys should know by now what I mean when I'm talking about that. It's just every pair that has the JPY in it, all right, or mainly the top ones, right? So you have about 6 or 7 roughly, and those are the pairs that you want to look for your selling opportunity, as they will present you with huge selling opportunities that will easily get you 100 to 200 pips minimum. Okay, over the span of this week, definitely Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you could easily see 400 to maybe even 600 pips on some of those JPY pairs. All right, guys, so don't miss out on that for those selling opportunities. But on the JPY, I'm expecting a sweep out the gate, and then if we get closure back within on Sunday or Monday, then for the rest of the week I'll be expecting the JPY to rise back above highs that it has created. All right, guys, so I'm bullish on JPY. All right, over to our dollar. Because I am bearish on the dollar, I'm bullish on our dollar, but I am expecting possibly a sweep of the previous low, a little tap into this demand area before we take off. All right, so if we look at it on the lower time frame, maybe we have a little bit of we have a nice bit of engineered liquidity here, right, right above our demand zone. So we can see the odd dollar drop, right, as the dollar may rise a little bit to, sweep its buy side liquidity, right? And then it'll be heading down to seek sell side. So that means odd dollar will fall first, right, to seek sell side, and then, go to get buy side liquidity. So just once again, I'm looking for a potential sweep on the odd dollar first, and then I'm looking to take a buying opportunity on the odd dollar. All right, so I'm bullish. Okay, and moving over to euro dollar. All right, euro dollar is again picture perfect. At one point it was here at this demand level, but you can see it respected it as well as rejecting a demand level right below it. So it didn't quite take off this past week, which I expected it to, but now that buildup is here, where it's showing that all week, we've rejected the lows, we swept liquidity here, and we tapped into a demand area mitigating it, right? So the hammer candle on Friday also gives away telltale signs that we're getting ready for a major rise on euro dollar. If we get from where we are now to that high, we're talking 444 pips, all right, to the upside. So saying all that to say I am bullish on euro dollar. All right, very major play for the week. Don't miss out on it, guys. All right, pound dollar, and this also looks beautiful. All right, potential for it to sweep this liquidity, but it's looking pretty strong right now. All right, so you can play it by getting yourself into a position where the liquidity is, all right, in this area, right, and keeping your stop below demand, taking it up to that high. That's almost 600 pips on pound dollar, guys, with just 100 pip stop loss, right? But that's if pound dollar does the sweep. It may not do that. It may absolutely just push up out of here, as we've broken the high of Thursday and Wednesday on Friday. All right, so price is simply going to want to continue going higher. It may just do a little bit of retracement, which is where we may see a potential sweep, right, of Friday's low as well as last week's low before it takes off. But those are the two scenarios on pound dollar that you guys want to take into consideration. But ultimately, you're going to see a rise out of the pound dollar for, again, about 600 pips. So pound dollar and euro dollar, guys, it should be your easiest go-to plays of the week to make a good amount of money. All right, bullish on pound dollar. New Zealand dollar, you guessed it, I'm bullish, right? So we broke above, we did all the dancing, engineered liquidity, swept it, tapped into demand, and now we're holding higher. So I expect us to just get up out of here when the week begins. Even though I know Monday and Tuesday it may consolidate just a little bit more, it may not give us a super nice push, right? It may wait to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but again, you never really know, right? So don't just take it for granted that you can wait to get in, right? You want to try to get in while price is low, right? And then once news or whatever else may affect it, you'll already be in the mix. All right, so bullish on pound or New Zealand dollar. All right, over to dollar CAD, and I'm kind of mixing on this because it is at the support level, and this does seem kind of like a double bottom. But because the dollar looks so bearish, right, it should fall, right, overall. It's just from this point of view, it definitely fell a good bit on Friday, but it could respect this support area and potentially rise. So it's really hard to call it on dollar CAD, but also at the same time, looking at it from the weekly, I can see it potentially breaking below and hitting some of these lows to the left, where we'll be looking at 100 pips or so, right, 145 or potential 357. So I'm going to say bearish, but I'm watching out for a potential push up on dollar CAD first before I get into any selling opportunities. All right, but bearish on dollar CAD. All right, moving over to dollar CHF, and this looks way better for a selling opportunity. Very textbook, very clean. All right, breaking of the low, made the new low, we retraced, right, in a channel, right, channel format. So that means liquidity is on both sides of the trend line above and the trend line below. And this is also, you know, how your bearish flag patterns are formed, right, where we have a push down, right, we have our retracement, and then we have a continuation to the downside, breaking out, you know, of the support level of this rising channel pattern. All right, guys, so what I expect is potentially to sweep the previous day high or week high, and possibly even get to the, you know, top of this trend line, all right, on $CHF, and then, you know, we'll get the drop. But like I said, you don't really know exactly how price will play out, you know, when the markets are live. So you just have to kind of wait and see what it's doing at the time that, you know, you happen to, you know, be looking. And if it is you know, pushing up into this area, then yeah, definitely look for your sell with the tight stop loss. But if it's dropping, right, you don't want to try to catch that falling knife, right? You want to let it go ahead and do its drop, right, and then wait for it to get back to a higher point, right? Whenever, however long that may take for it to happen, right? You just need to wait. And when it does happen, then that's when you want to take that selling opportunity, as it'll be ready to continue to fall. All right, so saying all that, once again, guys, to say I'm bearish on $CHF, right? Very good setup. Just put it in your book with EU and GU. All right, $CHF for the sell. All right, over to $JPY, and I'm bearish on it as well, but I want to see it sweep this weekly high because it is very close to where, you know, the previous week high was on Friday. And you can tell that on Friday we swept liquidity from Thursday, Wednesday, as well as Tuesday. So this was a very nice sweep, but we can now, you know, potentially sweep that week. All right, and all bars intended. Okay, so if we sweep that week into supply, then that's going to be your best bet to get into your selling opportunity from there. Looking left on the lower time frame, you can see that level of supply just has a little bit more to go to, you know, get into the imbalance that sits between that, or in the middle of that supply area. So, you know, something like this is what I'll be looking for, push up, and then, you know, we'll break, right, come like this and do something like this. This is where you want to sell, or this is where you want to sell, but you need to wait for that to develop before you do so. All right, and if you do, you know, you're probably going to be a happy camper, because coming down from supply all the way to that swing low is almost 700 pips, guys. Right, UJ is going to be huge. I told you guys the JPY is bullish, so pairs like UJ, AJ, EJ, CJ, NJ, right, all the J's, GJ, right, it's going to be bearish, right, or at least it's going to have a selling opportunity on it, so don't miss out on it. All right, guys, bearish on $JPY. Right, over to pound odd, and I'm bullish. All right, guys, we got a bit of an inverse head and shoulders kind of going on here, right? You can't see it too clearly, but left shoulder, head, right shoulder, break of the neckline, retrace, and bulls have shown up. So I believe right out the gate we'll just see pound odd completely you know, get a run to the upside. And if we look at it from the daily, we can see, yeah, this is it's an easy 200 pips to that high, you know, 400 there. So, you know, within the week you can easily grab, you know, 500 pips from pound odd and possibly more. And this moves, and I was telling you guys this was setting up last week, but then look what, because it was here, right, but it wasn't ready yet. And so you can see every day since then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, it slowly but surely started to creep up. And Friday is or Thursday is when we got the most movement with the big body bull candle, but then Friday is where we're kind of seeing the rejection of sellers with the wick below the candle. So, you know, it's just going to be a matter of time before we break out of here and head to the upside. So I'm bullish on pound odd. All right, over to pound CHF, and same kind of situation where, you know, we did break this low, and, you know, we're inside of, you know, the Thursday candle for Friday. But if we look at it on a lower time frame, right? You guys can start to see, just where price is kind of respecting this level, right, as some kind of support level right about here. All right, so what we really want, right, is to see price get above here, right, breaking the structure, and then potentially coming back, respecting it, and then starting to take off, right? We'll have a double bottom at that point, right? But right now it still looks bearish. All right, so as it came down and broke below this low, it consolidated right here for a very, very long time. All right, so pound CAD is not really ready for action just yet, but if you guys give it some time to break out of consolidation, you'll most likely know exactly which side pound CAD wants to go in. All right, so just wait for that and then make your decision. But for now, pound CAD is actually still bearish. All right, moving over to pound CHF. Now look at pound CHF from the daily, and you can see that we had a break of the low here, made the new low, and we started to retrace. This was actually a bullish engulfing candle, right? But we didn't really get a change of character, right? So we're still bearish, in which if we go to the lower time frame, now you guys can see with that move up that we had, and we're starting to retrace. So we're going to tap into this demand area, and I guess I can refine it right here on this 2-hour time frame, right down to that demand for about 100 pips roughly. All right, so I'll be looking for pound CHF to push down, tap into demand, and then from there I'll be looking to place a buy position, all right, with my stop below the previous week low, and that's only 44 pips. I can easily take it up to the weekly high to get over a 1 to 2, and that's 152 pips, guys. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Even though if we look at it from that higher time frame, we got way more to go. We can make it up to this high or any of these highs that you see, which will be, roughly, 300 to maybe 600 pips on pound CHF. I am bullish, guys. All right, but it will drop first. Okay, over to GJ, and again, GJ has some pushing up that it can do, right? It can get to this next level of supply, sweeping this liquidity, and then again mitigating that supply and then dropping. All right, or we can just tap into the supply and drop, right? It's anybody's ball game, but it all depends on what the JPY does. If it goes to seek sell side liquidity first on the JPY, then we'll see GJ push up a little more, right? But if it goes if it doesn't take sell side liquidity and it just starts to rise, we can see GJ absolutely tank. All right, but overall, when we look at it from a higher time frame, we can see that GJ has already given us major structure change, right? So we were going up, 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 and then we broke this low right here with this massive move down, made a new low, retraced, engineered some liquidity right above a supply area so that can get got and we can tap into supply before we get the drop is what I'm looking for. And this is the beginning of a reversal on top of that. So by the time JPY gets to, this supply area or starts to reject this one, the move down is going to continue for a very long time. And you guys have a great opportunity of getting it from the high and holding on to the point where you may be able to get away with 1,000 pips and who knows how long, but it's just the possibility. 67 days, 30 days, you never know, right? Because again, we're at different times where we can get a big shoot down, right? Something like this again, or something like that, where because of the news, right, and because of the war. So don't sleep on any of the JPY pairs because they're going to get you paid. But I'm bullish on GJ. I'm sorry, bearish on GJ. All right, but watch out for the bullish move. Okay, moving over to pound New Zealand. All right, pound New Zealand gave us a double bottom. It broke the neckline. It gave us a retracement, and now Friday's candle has broken above Thursday, Wednesday, and Tuesday. So that is a very telltale sign that we want to continue rising, where we can potentially get up to this high on pound New Zealand, and that's 600 pips to that point. So looking at this from a lower time frame, guys, there you have a nice demand area that price most likely will retrace to. And if you put your buy position on, right, you can get away with potentially a 25 pip stop loss, maybe 30 just to give it some space, and then bring it up to that particular high that you see here, which is actually a triple top. All right, when we look left, and you can get away with 835 pips on pound New Zealand. Very, very good setup. Put it with EU, GU, dollar CHF, and now pound New Zealand as really nice go-to plays for the week. All right, guys, bullish on pound New Zealand. Over to silver, all right, where everybody's trying to get paid. Right, we got bamboozled last week. All right, so silver did this whole drop, because we had this run, so it completed this pullback right to our key point of interest, which happened to be a demand area. But since then, right, that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it consolidated, and we were like, what's going on, right? Because it then should have took off. It should have took off from here, but no, it corrected, and then it started to push up a little bit, but we never got that takeoff that we should have gotten. So the way I see this is we may potentially get a sweep of this liquidity right back into this demand, maybe tapping it like this, maybe even getting a little deeper to this demand area before we get that rise to get up out of here on silver. All right, so this is going to be a situation where you guys definitely want to wait to try to take advantage of any buying opportunity on silver, because even if it pushes up a little bit, it could just be again a trap to take everyone out, right, and then have it rise on you. So instead of trying to buy it where it is, right, just wait to see if you get any kind of drop on silver, so that you get into it at a lower price and have a lower risk to reward, or better risk to reward with lower risk, basically, getting it from that lower price point. All right, but definitely super bullish on silver, as we have CPI and PPI this week, along with just the war that's going on, that will act as a catalyst and send silver catapulting to new all-time highs. Guys, you can absolutely get paid on silver. All right, ladies and gents, so don't miss out. Bullish on silver. All right, little brother, gold. Okay, and gold has given us a nice equal low, or double bottom, if you will. All right, so same thing, it's been consolidating for the last week when it should have taken off, but it didn't. Right, it's all good. We just readjust and reposition. So this is a situation where it could just again blast off, guys, and if it does, I'm hoping you guys don't chase. Right, don't try to chase gold if you see that it's taken off and gone far away from you. Right, wait until you get some sort of pullback, because you will. Right, we just don't know when, right, but it will happen. And when it does, that's when you try to that's when you want to get into your buying opportunity. Right, but what I'm looking for with gold is a potential sweep of those equal lows, possibly sweeping the previous week low and then starting to go higher. All right, I don't think gold will get this low, but there is a fair value gap sitting right above a demand area, so that is a possibility that we can still see Monday and Tuesday gold and silver dropping to other demand areas or other support areas, to either sweep liquidity or mitigate those demand areas before rising. All right, if it happens, again, not something to cry about. Right, you can either try to take advantage of selling it, or just be patient and wait for it to get into your zones and take those buying opportunities, getting into gold at a lower price than where it currently is, which is going to get you in profits a lot faster, especially once economic news like CPI and PPI hit. All right, guys, so I'm looking at gold getting back to, well, not getting back to, but getting to 6,000 as a new all-time high this week. Again, we should have got the action last week. We didn't. We just got the retracement and the setup, right? So I see a sweep, and then it's everything's off to the moon from there on gold. So I'm bullish, guys. All right, moving over to natural gas, same exact thing. I'm bullish on it, but I do feel like we'll come down and take out the low of last week and Friday before we rise up, because we still have this huge imbalance right above this demand area that, you know, could be tapped into right before we take off. So for natural gas, like if you see it, you know, push up and get away from you, you know, don't try to chase that, you know, just lay low, wait for another retracement, use your fib, and if you're getting rejection off of one of the fib levels, especially the golden zone, then you go ahead and take your trade. All right, bullish on natural gas. All right, over to oil. So oil all day last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, oil just kept pushing up. So congratulations, gas is higher. All right, and I don't see oil stopping or slowing down anytime soon. So without, you know, a whole winded explanation, I'm bullish on oil. All right, guys, but watch for some kind of profit taking right before it goes up. But again, I think it could just, you know, completely blast off, because we understand, you know, what it's all about, right? It's the resources, it's not anything else. All right, guys, so try to take advantage of any retracement that we get on oil to get in at a lower price point, as it will definitely continue to rise. All right, bullish on oil. All right, moving over to SPY. All right, and this is pretty hard. All right, it's pretty mixed. All right, looking at it from a higher time frame, we can see that we broke the low of Thursday and we went lower, but you know, now we're at this support area, really within this fair value gap. So because I'm thinking the dollar is going to fall, right, we do have the potential of SPY to rise. All right, but because we broke the low of Thursday, we may take out the low of Friday first before we rise, right? So it's going to be tricky. If there was if we got a clean break below these lows, then I'll, you know, probably be looking to sell SPY. But again, SPY is holding on to a very nice support level at this, you know, at this particular moment. So we could see SPY begin to rise and either, you know, go take out Friday's high or the previous week high, maybe even get back up to the 7,000 price point. All right, just with the way that it's looking now, guys, I'm going to say bullish on SPY. All right, over to Nas. All right, shout out to my girl Nikki Nas. All right, doing her thing. But the way I'm seeing this right now is we broke this low, made the new low. All of this was consolidation, but part of the pullback. So it, you know, gives the vibes that it wants to continue falling, right? But you can see all of this wick rejection sitting here, right? Respecting this area, and kind of looks like, you know, we got a sweep of that low, right? So we could also be heading higher on NAS to do a deeper retracement, right? So looking at it from a lower time frame, right? Yeah, I see huge imbalance here, right? Huge imbalance up here, two supply areas, right? And then all of this price action that's just basically acting as liquidity pools, right? That traders will most likely have their stop losses. All right, guys. So knowing that, especially that we're at a support area, if you were to trade consolidation, you'll want to sell it from supply and buy it from support, and you'll see each time you would make some sort of profit. So we're in that scenario now where we're in the consolidation, but we're at the support area of it. So your best opportunity would be some sort of buying opportunity. All right, but wait for price to see if it's going to go just a little bit lower, right? See if it breaks below this support area. If it does, you know, hold your horses, right? But if it kind of, you know, comes down but goes back in and starts to give you a bullish candle where you can see respect once again of this level like we did in the past, then we'll take our buying opportunity back up to resistance, maybe having NAS push a little higher, right, to the supply areas to fill this imbalance before dropping. All right, guys, so on NAS I am bullish. All right, moving over to US 30 last but not least, and it has a completely different makeup for the first time in my opinion, than Nat or SPY and NAS. All right, we broke lows and we're continuing to fall on US 30. And when we look at it from a higher time frame, we had a nice trend line break right about here. All right, just like that. So we shifted from up to down, breaking lows, making new lows, and now potentially retracing before we get a drop. All right, because we are sitting at, once again, this imbalance or a bit of a support area, all right, on US 30. So coming down, and we got nice rejection on Friday with that. So coming down to the 2 hour, all right, we can see that we have broken this low, right, made this new low, but now we may begin starting the retracement back to this supply zone or supply area. All right, so maybe from the 4 hour looks a little better. All right, there it is. All right, so I would expect US 30 to either push here, right, and maybe we start dropping, or get past that to the supply area and then start to drop. But for now, your best bet will most likely be buying US 30 as the retracement, right, to the new push down, right, before potentially looking for your selling opportunity from supply, guys. All right, so again, just wanted to point out, those major plays on GU EU, right, pound New Zealand, right, gold and silver, and something on the indices as far as SPY and NAS looking bullish, but US 30, even though it's looking more bearish just overall, it still has potential to rise before making this bearish continuation. All right, guys, so get in where you fit in with it all, and see if you can make something happen this week. But that's what I got. Hope y'all enjoy. Again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends and fam to get on in, right? We'll break it down and we win, right? Meantime, in between time, y'all know what it is. It's your boy. Peace.
Wanna get money? Wanna get paid? That's Forex. Like a sensei, then you know you gotta come and swing my way. And if you wanna fast forward, hit replay.